I only remember the sound. Metal hitting asphalt. A scream. Then silence. I was lying on the road, staring at the sky, my fingers still gripping the throttle. My bike was totaled. My leg, pinned under his car. And that bastard just stood there, smoking a cigarette, watching me try to move. No blinker. No warning. No fear. He just cut me off like I was nothing. And you know what the worst part is? The cops didn't even touch him. That night he went home. I went to the hospital. 2 days later I found out who he was. The son of a local businessman who handles things. That's when I realized something. If the law wouldn't do anything, I would. They stitched me up and called it a miracle. Friends came by with coffee and awkward silence. My boss texted only once. Heal up, man. Insurance gave me a number to call and a polite voice who said, we'll look into it. The verb there was soft, non-committal. I learned very quickly that polite words can be armor for doing nothing. What really set me off was the police report. 2 pages of neutral language, no citations, no clear assignment of fault. Accident. Contributory negligence. Unknown. The officer wrote down my statement, then asked me to talk to their insurance people. He didn't ask about the driver's name. He didn't tell me his badge number. I got angry in a small, useless way at first. Calls, emails, the kind of noise that disappears into systems. Then I called the ER the morning after because my leg felt like it was trying to escape my body. A nurse I liked said quietly, you were lucky. It could have been worse. Lucky? I was lucky I was still breathing. Lucky I could still think about making someone pay. I started collecting scraps. Photos from the scene. My friend Mark had driven by and stopped. He took pictures on his phone. The bike's headlight shattered in a way that matched the scrape on the car's bumper. A business card lodged in my boot with the driver's name scrawled on it by someone who didn't want to be asked questions later. I sent a polite email to the precinct requesting the dashcam footage from nearby cameras. I got a form reply, under review. Then I found him on Instagram. It didn't take long. He posted the night of the crash, an old photo of him in a suit, a glass of scotch, a caption about family business. He tagged his father's company. His feed was curated. Yachts, charity events, photos of people who mattered. No photo of a mangled bumper or a man on the road. But in the comments someone mentioned a fundraiser at the Evergreen Club. That's where his father rubbed elbows with the city. That's where favors got handed like napkins. I felt the anger change shape. Raw fury is heat, planning is cold. I started folding that heat into something with edges. Step 1. Make sure his story and mine could be tied together in a way the press couldn't ignore. Step 2. Make it expensive enough, financially and reputationally, that his father would stop protecting him. Step 3. Make sure there were witnesses. And if the official channels were a wall, I'd build a different one. One people could see and push against. I toured the accident scene on crutches. The city had a camera at the gas station corner. The lens pointed the wrong way, but there was a traffic camera on the light pole across the street. The feed was municipal. I filed a public records request. The clerk looked at me like I was wasting her time. Those can take weeks, she said. Weeks were a courtesy the son of a businessman could bank on. People forget. Stories cool. Memories fade. So I escalated quieter ways. I asked the shop owners nearby. The mechanic on the corner, old Joe, said he'd seen a black SUV with a dent in the bumper pull away. He remembered because the SUV left a streak of construction dust across its hood, the same dust from the site 2 blocks over. That dust meant a route. That route meant a pattern. I noted license plate fragments Joe swore he'd seen. Not much, but it was something. Back at home, with my leg propped up, I started to dig into the father. Business registrations, shell companies, charity boards. The kind of man who throws galas and funds parks rarely does anything without an audit trail if you know where to look. Donations, property deeds, corporate filings. The father's name, Elliot Hargrove, popped up in local business news a few times. A recent donation to the Evergreen Club, a tax break here, a whispered dispute about a zoning decision that went his way. Influence that smelled like money. I printed pages. I started a folder on my laptop called Hargrove. It felt petty at first, but petty is useful. You can put a lot of things together from petty notes. Next, I made contact with someone I'd avoided my whole life, social media. I created an account, new name, voice steady, and posted a short, sharp recount of the crash. I didn't say names. I painted a picture. Nice suit, no blinker, the smell of cheap scotch, the sound of a man who thought he could erase a life with a glance. The post caught traction because people love outrage with a face. It got shared, reshared. Comments came. Someone else from my neighborhood claimed a near miss with the same SUV 2 weeks earlier. Another wrote that a friend's kid had almost been hit on the same block. Anecdotes are the seeds of patterns. The post drew attention to something else, the son's social feed. People started to tag the club's page, the father's company. Comments stacked. The more people whispered, the louder the whisper became. Then I got a message. Anonymous short, "We have footage. Pay up or we leak it." Extortion is sloppy and I knew it was a trap. But the message also proved the point. Someone had footage. Someone saw. Someone would take a paycheck to keep quiet. I replied with a single sentence, "Show me." No money. No threats. Just a deal on my terms. They sent a link to a file. The video was grainy, phone camera at a distance, but it showed the SUV turning sharply from a side street with little warning and the bike sliding under its bumper. It showed the driver stepping out, looking around and then lighting a cigarette. A perfect, dumb sequence of indifference. No blinker. No attempt to check. Not making an excuse, just walking away. I downloaded it. I made 3 copies. I uploaded one to a private cloud, emailed another to a local reporter I'd found, an independent journalist who had written once about Hargrove's tax breaks, and kept one on my drive like a loaded gun. The reporter responded within an hour, "This is something. Meet me." We met in a coffee shop with cheap espresso and better anonymity. He asked questions, what I remembered, what the cops had done, where I thought the footage came from. He liked details. Reporters always do. They stitch truth from accounts like thread. He said the city would be embarrassed if this went public, with a police shrug. He said he'd run it, but he needed corroboration. Camera timestamps, an independent witness, names. I left the coffee shop and my leg felt heavier than before. That's when I decided I wasn't going to wait until the paper ran. I wanted pressure that didn't rely on other people's schedules. I wanted movement. So I made a plan that felt dangerous and right. I would go to the Evergreen Club's gala next week, walk in on crutches if I had to, and sit where I could be seen. I would wear the same jacket the driver wore in his posts, the one with the subtle monogram, so that someone would notice. I would plant a question in the right ear, hand a printout to the right person, and make sure that the video, my video, found its way into the room. People like Hargrove are delicate flowers until someone picks them apart. They thrive on optics. I would change the optics. The week dragged. I did PT at home, my anger a steady muscle I could flex. Friends asked if I wanted to press charges. I don't want to get hurt again, I told them. I want what's right. They didn't understand the difference. Right is slow, revenge is precise. The night before the gala, I sat at my kitchen table with the downloaded footage on my laptop, a printed photo of the driver, and a list of names, guests, board members, aides. I felt like a surgeon about to mark an incision. My leg throbbed. My hand didn't. At 2 a.m., I sent the file to the reporter, and I sent a single short email to 3 people on Elliot Hargrove's board. No accusation, just a question. Do you know the man in this video? Attached. A single frame of the driver lighting his cigarette. Then I waited. And I realized, with a cold kind of satisfaction, that the wait would be part of the plan. People who think they control everything always underestimate how quickly control unravels when something as small as a video shows the truth. The gala doors would open in 12 hours. I iced my leg and taped my crutch. I'd never been good at sitting still. Tomorrow I would go where the powerful gather to hide from consequence, and I would not leave until I'd made at least one of them uncomfortable. That was the moment everything stepped past anger and into motion. That was the moment I stopped being a victim in a hospital bed and started being something the Hargroves had not planned for. An inconvenient story with a video they couldn't delete. What I didn't know then, the uncomfortable, dangerous unknown, was how far the Hargroves would go to protect their name. The next morning my phone was blowing up. 3 unread emails. 1 from the reporter, 2 from addresses I didn't recognize. The reporter's subject line said, "They're asking questions." That was all I needed to read to know the fuse had been lit. The board members I'd sent that frame to? One of them had forwarded it to Hargrove Sr. himself. The old man had called the paper, demanding to know who leaked a manipulated video. The reporter refused to name me, which only made the Hargroves angrier. And when men like that get angry, they stop pretending. By noon, 2 guys in suits showed up at my apartment. Not cops. Not lawyers. Representatives. They knocked once hard. The kind of knock that says we're not leaving. When I opened the door, one of them smiled, that fake calm smile you see before something bad happens. "Mr. Walker?" "That's me." My employer would appreciate a word. About a certain misunderstanding. I almost laughed. You mean the one where your boss's son almost killed me? His eyes didn't flinch. He said you stepped into traffic. I stepped closer, still on my crutch. Funny. My leg doesn't remember it that way. They exchanged a look, the kind that decides whether to push or back off. One of them reached into his jacket. I tensed, but he only pulled out an envelope. Inside was a check. $50,000. And a note, "Let's all move on." I looked at it for a long second, then handed it back. "Tell your boss I'm not selling my life for the price of his car." They left without a word. But I caught the warning in their eyes, not anger, just certainty. They thought I'd fold eventually. Everyone does until you show them what you're made of. That evening I went to the gala. The Evergreen Club looked like every expensive lie: glass, marble, fake smiles. The kind of place where guilt gets washed down with vintage wine. I walked in slow, the crutch clicking on the floor, pain sharp with every step. Heads turned. Maybe they recognized me, maybe they just didn't like seeing a broken man in their perfect picture. At the bar I spotted him, the driver. Ethan Hargrove. Fresh suit, same arrogant smirk. Standing next to his father like a golden trophy. He saw me. For a split second, his smile faltered. Then came back tighter. He whispered something to his dad. The old man looked over, expressionless. I raised my glass to them. The bartender whispered, "You sure you want to do this, man?" I nodded. "I'm just here to make sure people remember my face." I didn't start a scene. Not yet. Instead, I walked straight past them to the silent auction tables, where a small TV looped promo videos, one of them playing a highlight reel from the Hargrove Foundation. When the host called for attention, the lights dimmed. I took my cue. The projector flickered. Then, my video started to play. The crash. The cigarette. The silence. Ethan's face, clear as day. The room froze. You could feel the air turn heavy. Someone gasped. Someone else said, "Is that?" Elliot Hargrove shot to his feet. "Turn that off." But it was too late. Everyone had seen it. The whispers started like rain, fast, unstoppable. I didn't move. Didn't need to. Security came, confused, scanning the crowd. The old man's eyes locked on me. Pure fury. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He just said one thing as he passed by me on the way out. "You don't know who you're dealing with." I smiled. "I think I do." That night, the video hit social media. I didn't post it. Someone at the gala did. Maybe out of shock, maybe out of spite, didn't matter. Within hours, it had thousands of shares. News blogs picked it up. The headline read, "Local businessman's son caught in hit-and-run video." By morning, the police department had reopened the investigation. Suddenly, they found new evidence. The same evidence I'd been begging them to review for weeks. Funny how that works. I should have felt satisfied. But I didn't. Because late that night, while I was scrolling through the news, I heard something outside my apartment. A car idling. When I looked through the blinds, a black SUV was parked across the street. Lights off. Engine running. I knew that car. It sat there for half an hour. Then it drove away. No plates. No message. Just a warning. The next morning, the reporter called again. "Walker, you okay?" "I'm fine. Listen, I've been digging. The Hargrove family's got ties everywhere. Judges, cops, even local media. You need to watch your back." "I already am," I said. But I wasn't watching enough. Because that afternoon, I came home to find my door half open. Inside, drawers pulled out, laptop gone, files missing. They'd been here. I sat down in the mess and laughed, a dry, tired sound. If they thought they could scare me, they hadn't learned a damn thing. They still thought I was the same guy lying broken on the road. They had no idea that version of me died that night. I spent the next week staying with a friend. He was an ex-IT guy, the kind who could find a deleted file faster than most people find their car keys. Together we rebuilt everything they'd stolen. Every document, every video frame, every message. And we found something new. Buried in the footage metadata, a timestamp that didn't match. It proved the police had edited the video before releasing it publicly. They tried to protect Ethan. That was my new weapon. I called the reporter again. "I've got proof the cops covered it up." He paused. "You realize what that means?" "Yeah," I said. "It means this time they're all going down together." The next part of the plan wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice, the kind you have to make with your own hands. I was done being careful. Done waiting for the system to wake up. This time I'd make sure everyone saw exactly how deep the rot went. And when it all collapsed, when the Hargroves and their friends started turning on each other, I'd be there to watch it happen. because they hit me once. But now it was my turn to hit back. And I don't miss. I remember the sound of the gavels long before I saw the headlines. It was the sound of other people's lives cracking. In the week after the footage resurfaced, the city felt like it was finally waking up, slow, groggy, embarrassed, and then furious. First came the small things: internal investigations, a terse statement from the police chief, a press conference where his lips moved but nothing changed. Then came the thing that actually matters to men like Elliot Hargrove: exposure. Not whispers in clubs or late-night gossip. Public, traceable, searchable proof that something rotten had been protected. The reporter ran the story with everything I handed him: the raw footage, the metadata showing edits, the receipts of attempted hush payments. He ran it with a headline that tasted like justice: local tycoon's son in hit and run as cops looked the other way. The city read it. The state read it. The feeds lit up. I watched the Hargroves' faces on television like slow-motion fireworks. Elliot looked smaller than I remembered. Power erodes in public. It doesn't explode, it seeps away. Board members started resigning. Donors suspended contributions. The Evergreen Club sent out an email about pending inquiries. People who once smiled across the table now avoided eye contact. That was the moment the Hargroves realized the checks and favors only buy quiet until quiet is no longer possible. But exposure alone isn't revenge. It's a match. You still have to light things. For me, lighting things meant timing and pressure. I knew they could survive a scandal if it fizzled. I didn't want to fizzle, so I pushed. I handed the reporter a folder with specifics: dates, phone logs, a list of personnel at the precinct who'd been unusually helpful to the Hargroves. I sat with a state ethics investigator and pointed out conflicts of interest. I called local civic groups, reminded them that a man who bought zoning decisions might buy silence too. I did the boring, bureaucratic work because boring things make the powerful uncomfortable: audits, subpoenas, depositions. Paperwork is slow justice, but it is relentless. One night, 2 weeks in, I got a call from the reporter. "They want to talk," he said. "Elliot Sr. wants to come clean, sort of. He's offering a statement and a donation to the city if you'll agree to no lawsuit." I listened to the pitch and pictured the old man reading from a prepared script. It would be theater, an apology that cost him nothing and him shaking hands while everything stays the same. I said no. "You sure?" the reporter asked. "You could take the money, walk away. You'd be fine." "Fine?" I said. Fine was lying on the road with my leg pinned. Fine is watching a man walk away and thinking the system was enough. I thought of the envelope they'd left at my door. I thought of the SUV idling across the street. Fine was a word they used for people they wanted to buy. So we pushed harder. The investigator issued subpoenas. The precinct put 3 officers on leave pending an internal probe. The mayor got a call from the state. The Hargroves lawyers started calculating contingencies: insurance, legal teams, crisis PR. They were no longer acting, they were reacting. That reaction led to panic, and panic makes mistakes. Ethan Hargrove started to crack in the small ways you see in people who think they've always been untouchable. He canceled public appearances, then private ones. He stopped sleeping well. The arrogance that used to fit him like a suit now looked like a costume. One night, a tip came in to the reporter. An audio file recorded in a luxury car, a voice I recognized as Ethan's saying, "Make sure he remembers who he is. Let them know what can happen if he keeps poking." The file was ugly. It implied threats. It also implied motive. We turned the file over to the investigator. It was the kind of thing that meant Ethan couldn't stay in the limelight without lawyers and cameras following him like vultures. He hired a PR team and started issuing statements that sounded more defensive than contrite. People who'd once raised their glasses to him now read those statements and saw the man behind the curtain. I'm not going to pretend everything fell apart neatly. The Hargroves fought back with money and lawyers and influence. They tried to bury our evidence with countersuits, with claims of slander. They hired investigators to trace the origin of the footage and the anonymous message. They called the reporter into private rooms and tried to buy stories. It was ugly, pervasive, and exactly what I expected. What I didn't expect was how many people mattered more to them than money. Employees who had been quiet when it mattered now had grandchildren, mortgages, reputations. Board members who'd signed off on decisions that benefited Hargrove Sr. suddenly preferred simple truth over complicated loyalty. When the people who prop up a man's life decide not to, even his money can't paper the cracks. The legal wheels turned. Officers were questioned. Evidence that had been misplaced reappeared. The county prosecutor opened an investigation into the precinct's handling of the case. Ethan was indicted on a couple of charges that might stick. Elliot Sr. resigned from multiple boards and took an extended leave from the charities that had once been his crown jewels. And me? I kept my face out of the cameras for the most part. I didn't want to be a martyr or a hero. I wanted to be the guy who changed a line item on a balance sheet. A husband, a son, a man whose life had been nearly taken and who made sure that something meaningful happened in return. There was one confrontation though. A week after the indictment I got a call. "He wants to meet," the reporter said. "One-on-one, no lawyers. He says he wants to explain." I went. I walked into a small room at a neutral place, a lawyer's office converted to a meeting space, and there he was, Ethan. He looked tired. He didn't start with anger. He started with an apology that sounded raw, not scripted. "I'm sorry," he said. "For everything. I didn't think. His voice broke. "My dad told me people get in the way. He taught me how to shut them out. I was wrong. It would be easy to say I felt empathy. I didn't. I felt the hollow thing guilt makes when it comes late. But I listened. I told him what the crash had done. The surgeries, the nights waking up in pain, the small things you don't see, the way people look at you. Then I said, I didn't do this for money, Ethan. I did it so you and your father know there's a cost for closing your eyes when someone's life is on the line." He nodded. He didn't argue. He didn't try to buy my silence. He only looked like a man who'd finally seen the consequences of his choices. The indictments did what I knew they would do. They cut privileges, peeled away facades. But punishment wasn't the primary thing I wanted. That would be cruel and empty. What I wanted was change, for the police to stop smoothing things over, for the Hargroves to stop assuming they were outside consequence, for the next person who gets cut off on the road to know that someone might stand up. Months later, when the prosecutor gave a statement about reforms, about audits, about holding all people accountable, I read it and felt the old tired weight lift a little. Not because justice had arrived perfectly, it never does, but because the city moved. People who mattered had been forced to answer. Systems creaked and then shifted a degree. In the end, Ethan pled guilty to a misdemeanor hit and run and faced community service and probation. A couple of officers lost their jobs. Elliot Hargrove paid fines and lost board seats. The Evergreen Club instituted new safety protocols and public oversight. The reporter who'd never stopped calling me sold the story to a bigger outlet, and people in other towns read how small influence can become a weapon. I didn't celebrate with champagne. I went home to the apartment with the porch light that had once been a place of ordinary evenings. I sat on the step and watched the city move. Lights, cars, a kid on a bike laughing at nothing. My legs still ache sometimes. I have scars. I have days when I think about what I could have lost. But I also have the knowledge that I made a choice, not the violent kind of retribution people fantasize about, but a different kind. Persistence, pressure, the slow dismantling of privilege that protects the reckless. People ask me now if I regret stepping into that fight. They ask if the cost was worth it. I tell them the truth. I lost sleep, friends I hadn't expected, and a sliver of my innocence. But I also got something back. A sense that lines matter, and that when someone crosses them thinking the law will look away, they can be reminded that they're not above consequence. Revenge, I learned, isn't always about breaking a man. Sometimes it's about breaking the system that lets men think they're unbreakable. And when that system broke, even a little, it felt like getting my life back. I still ride sometimes. Not like I did before, reckless and holy. Slower. Cleaner. I keep my eyes on the road. But now, when I pass the corner where the SUV turned, I feel something else. A quiet satisfaction, like a wound stitched up, a story told aloud until it cannot be ignored. I don't miss.